very, very important that you follow the instructions on how to set it up properly. But it is actually quite simple.
Yeah, and we are DevOps, so you are setting the bar too low.
My usual spot.
But again, it's about the learning culture, right? About the growth. Okay. Next question.
Yeah, for security, how do you guys manage the data security when using OpenAI or even ChatGPT and Copilot? For large language models, how do you manage that the information, the data privacy, how is it handled by WorkSafeBC?
Great question. The short answer is you don't.
I'm okay. Oh, you okay?
The short answer is you can't. You don't. If it were up to security, you'd be blocked. You wouldn't be using it, period. We also have that ship has sailed. So things like GitHub Enterprise, it gives you like a private tenant. Your inputted data that could be your sensitive corporate stuff doesn't end up in the greater large language model. So you have to pay for that privilege, basically, is the short answer. But it is a huge problem in security. One of my favorite stories recently was there was a bunch of Amazon employees were using ChatGPT, and they put a bunch of like passwords and secrets into ChatGPT because they were trying to get to output code. So all of a sudden, these other random people from around the world were using ChatGPT, and you could ask it, what would an Amazon secret look like? And boom, you have access to an internal S3 bucket. So recognizing the ship has sailed, that AI, these large language models are everywhere, it's impossible to stop now, even if I could, because of issues like this. So it's a matter of education, it's a matter of training, it's a matter of awareness of what could happen, and also pay money for the privatized kind of tenants for these tools.
Is WorkSafeBC planning to build their own
models? We're buying or have bought Copilot Enterprise Edition, is that what it's called?
Copilot for Business and Copilot for Enterprise.
Yeah, there's two versions of it, but one effect of this is that your inputted data is not incorporated into the greater model, which also may limit its effectiveness because you can't actually train it on your own stuff. It's very complicated, it's very new, it's very much in fluidity, but it's also a big problem. Yes, it's a great question.
And we'll be fine-tuning the large language model, especially for the collects from GitHub. So that's where Willie was talking about using AI to troubleshoot or incidents, if there is a production incident, for example, or even scanning the code base and checking for any potential issues that exist today that we are not even aware of. So there's a lot of opportunity. So there is, I think Willie and Martin were talking actually about those new teams that we are actually creating at this point. Okay, thank you. There were more questions, I think. I think you had a question?
I have a question for the Agile trainer, so should I not use?
No, just like hold it sideways, don't hold it pointed up.
I saw the video that you showed. It looks like it's like Agile in action, but actually in person. So thinking back to the timeline, you guys started in 2017, which is pre-COVID, and this got all the way here. So there's a transition from in-person to online. Personally, I've never done Agile in person. I started my career after COVID, so all of the Agile stuff I've done is online. I've never interacted with physical stuff in an Agile setting, so I saw some stuff where you're having a stand-up meeting where people are actually standing up. I heard that's a tradition, so that looks pretty cool, and you're like interacting with like speakers and stuff. I was wondering how that transition is for you, like just having an organization that doesn't have Agile at all to a physical version of Agile to an online version, whether there's anything interesting there.
No, please go ahead.
So yes, that was a video from pre-pandemic. So there was a lot of things that we did online, in person. And when we had to move online, we really quickly had to figure out what tools are we going to use to mimic what we were doing in person. So we use Azure DevOps as our backlog. So every morning when we do our stand-up, we actually somebody is sharing their screen. When I say somebody, it doesn't have to be the Scrum Master or one person, specific person. It can be anybody on the team. So they share their screen, and in that screen we can see the swim lanes. So we actually see the different columns: to do, in progress, and done. And each person, because this tool can also filter down on the person who's working on what they're working on. So similar to the person in person, we would say, hey Michael, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? And what are you planning to do to progress our goal for this iteration or this sprint? Or if there's any blockers. So same 3 questions get answered. What did I do yesterday? What am I doing today to advance? And if there's any blockers. So that didn't change. The only thing that changed is we're not just standing up. We may be sitting down in front of our computers, but that's what we are doing. And what we also found that face-to-face interaction was sort of missing when we went virtual. We tried to establish a little bit of joke or humor or something during the stand-up, because that's the first thing we see, or first time we see our team in the morning. So typically we encourage people to show up on camera and give their updates. And yes, developers, not a lot of you like to come on camera. So it does become a little bit challenging, but that is working. It's courage, yes.
Courage.
And it takes one person, and sometimes, I'm pretty sure some of you who are here, I come on camera, and then I'll ask, who else wants to come on camera? And next thing you know, people all come on camera. One of our Scrum Masters here, he knows, and I show up on his stand-up on Fridays. He's like, oh, Sangeeta, you always come on a Friday, and everybody's excited to see you. That's why we come on camera. But it's just courage, is what Andre's saying. Come on camera, do the similar things. And we try to recreate a lot of these different meetings that we were doing in person, virtually. We have our smaller core team chat. We have a bigger chat. We have people that we are working with dependencies. We have chats with them. So we actually, in some ways, we have leveraged the tools and technology to collaborate a little bit better. It's still fun when we actually meet in person, because then it's more about putting the face to the name. But those are some of the things that we use to do our stand-ups and leverage that connection.
Which one do you think the team prefer at this point?
It depends who you ask, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I can maybe just jump into that. Honestly speaking, my experience is in person works way better. There is, and I'll be honest with you. In 2000, and we're talking about this. In 2017, the organization was 100 years old. In 2018, and Kevin might remember this, we want to introduce an instant messenger, Slack. Guess what? No, you should not have this. Why do you need Slack? Why do you need an instant messenger? Like, just, if you want to talk to a developer, just go smack in his head and just tell him what you want from him, right? And, well, actually, we need this because, you know, if you are busy, you put on don't disturb, and I can actually see that you are busy. I see you that you're sitting over there, but I don't want to disturb you. So I can actually, you know, send a message to you or something like this. You're going to answer whenever you are available. But that's what we did. When COVID hit, we didn't even notice. Honestly speaking, we're one department in the entire organization was like, you know, our CEO was asking, oh, how are you guys doing? You know, and it's like, are you collaborating? How are you feeling? And so on. We didn't notice. We were as productive as we were before. We were using it, right? So there was no really notice, but yet it's a combination of both. So technology as a messenger, being online has its own place, but there is nothing that actually replaces the physical contact face to face. And we are trying to do this, you know, periodically. We just get together and within the teams, and that's, you know, that's how we build relationships. And I understand what you're saying, because, and especially for young workers, for young people who are starting their careers, the only way how you can actually build the relationships and build this connection is being actually in person. You cannot do it online. And you know, for myself, okay, I'm 24, so maybe it's not, but you know, but I understand where you are at this point. So my suggestion would be, you know, as much as possible, try to get actually in contact with other people and attend sessions like this, or committees of practice, or we go to centers of enablement, and so on and so on. So there is a lot of opportunities, but in person, it's actually something that you cannot replace.
One of the things I just want to add really quickly, at the start of the pandemic, my whole team, there's 5 of us at the time, we all bought VR goggles, and we started having meetings in a fake Jurassic Park. Going over our board, and someone plays a T-Rex right in front of us in the conference board. So there's a lot of really creative things you can do online as well.
Another question there?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I have a question about the Stack Overflow AI. I assume you have service playbook already, where if you want to triage an issue, maybe you go on conference, there are documentations where you have to look at. And over time, it's possible people actually comment on those documents that, oh, this doesn't work anymore, this works. Now, you're thinking about bringing Stack Overflow AI. How do you intend to migrate all of those decades of playbooks and feedback comments to Stack Overflow? Thank you.
And maybe Martin, you want to answer this question?
I'll take a stab at it. We haven't adopted Stack Overflow yet. We're just in the process of negotiations with them, so we haven't had to jump through those hoops. But we are going to get it at an enterprise level, so we will have our own private tenant. So privacy concerns are managed much like we're doing with GitHub Copilot for business and for enterprise, all within a private tenant, so we can import all of our historic data into it, as well as our wikis, our knowledge base into that, and not have fear of it going any further. There's ways to pull the information or gather information from the general Stack Overflow, but what we put into it doesn't filter or move out. So we're totally contained within our own environment.
Yeah, I understand that. Is it going to be automatic or someone has to do it manually? The reason why I'm asking is I worked at user testing and we implemented Stack Overflow. What happened was a lot of time people end up going back to, okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I do have experience with enterprise Stack Overflow at user testing where I worked a couple of months ago. So what happened was after implementing it became redundant. And the reason for that was because a lot of people didn't find it useful because they had to end up going back to Confluence to go search through Confluence information to go through the playbooks to figure out how to triage or solve an issue. So is there a way right now, does Stack Overflow have a way for you to actually move your existing playbooks or like service information how to triage issues down from, if you're using Confluence for instance, now to Stack Overflow? Well, how do you tend to do that? Is it going to be manual or is there a tool to help you do that?
Initially it'll be manual, it'll have to be manual at first until we figure it out.
Interesting. That's a lot of work.
So I just want to add to this because I'm very, very excited about Stack Overflow. And honestly speaking, Stack Overflow is not so much about feeding the information about whatever documentation you have over there. Actually, we and Willie team and Martin will be also working on ChatGPT, OpenAI. So some, Azure OpenAI in our case, we're going to feed the information over there from our documents that we've got all over the place, and we're going to automate that. So for sure, that's where if you go to the chat, the chatbot, you will ask the question, it will actually provide you answer based on those documents. But Stack Overflow has a different purpose. It's really about building community, where you ask the questions and other people will answer those questions depending on their experience, and vice versa, right? The other aspect of this as well is it's actually going to identify the thought leaders, people who are responding to these questions the most, and they are voted that their answers are actually the best. Over a period of time, you can see immediately who is actually the expert in the area. They earn badges. You don't need to do anything. It actually does this stuff for you. And so I know if you are like answered specific question in a specific area. I know that you're an expert there, and you got a gold badge. Oh, great, perfect. You are actually the expert, and then let's reward these people, right? So that's what we wanted. That's where the Stack Overflow has power. That's where we want to go. And the other aspect as well is we recently implemented the low-code solution. So in our case, it's the Power Apps. And what we want to do, and the biggest challenge within any organization, IT is a bottleneck. Honestly speaking, the users, the stakeholders, they always want more that we can deliver because we've got only so much capacity. But now if we are able to empower them to build their own applications, they will actually start doing that. So we are going to offload a lot of this stuff to them, shift left. And to do that, Stack Overflow. Because if I'm a user and I don't, I just had a basic training on Power Apps, but I've got a problem and I cannot solve it, that's the first place I would go. Instead of going to developers or high-end developers and then searching all over the place, I ask the question and someone is going to respond. And with AI, I'm also hoping that I'm going to actually the right answers, or people who already answered that, or find actually the right people who I should actually ask. So that's where the power of Stack Overflow is.
Do you use Slack?
Well, we changed from Slack to Microsoft Teams. There's a question.
Hey, I got a question regarding to organizational change. Also from a company, I also work at a government agency, so understanding with a long history of kind of traditional waterfall kind of project management styles. What was the last straw at WorkSafeBC that helped to push the new ideas and that helped you to form a team to do something that's different?
We had courageous leader. So my boss was actually someone who really wanted to push that, and he put his, I would say, career on at stake to do that. And he was convincing. We were convincing all of us. We actually started showing. I think the best way to. It's not about talking. It's not about, as I said before, right at the beginning. The change is not coming from something that you're going to explain and you're going to say show. Right? So as soon as we have this pod, and like on the bi-weekly basis, they not only were able to deliver something to production, but they actually were demonstrating this stuff. And people could actually see it, and business was in those demos. That was actually convincing them, and suddenly they started building the momentum, right? Everybody wants to do this. So whenever we touch the business, we really start breaking the silos. They really want to be on board. And that's like, it's like an avalanche. You start with one small stone, and then slowly it's actually start going and up the momentum. To me, when I mentioned the participatory budgeting that business did, this was exactly, I would say, all right, now we achieved actually, we actually moved the organization to become agile, right? And again, agility does not, I'm talking about agility with a lowercase a, not capital A, right? This is what I mean. Agility is the way how you think and how you approach the problem rather than following a specific process, because there is no methodology. Agile is not methodology, right? Okay.
Yeah. Now you mentioned about that the users request or demand more new applications, and I believe you guys are using Power Apps to encourage users to build their own apps. Now, how do you manage data governance and data security and integrate that? Will it build silos within the organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is a risk of creating a shadow IT, right? Where people business will start actually generating applications that there is nobody to maintain them. So from security perspective, I can leave it to Kevin, you can answer this question, but Power Apps has a center of excellence that actually provides the monitoring, a lot of monitoring and ability to set up rules. But the other aspect as well is one of the processes that we implemented, and on a periodic basis, on a monthly basis, we scan, or with a team that actually scans the applications that are being used by or built by our stakeholders, and we see what is the usage of these applications. And if the application has more than 50 users, active users, then it means that this is actually a good application. It's becoming critical or important application in the business, we need to take it over to support it. So that's the criteria for us to look at application, and then IT will support applications if there is a 50 active users continuously. Right? So that, Kevin, do you want to add anything about security Power Apps?
That's good. Yeah, Power App security is complicated. Any kind of security for citizen development style apps is complicated. In reality, what you have to do, because you want to enable and empower people to do whatever you want, but you essentially want to secure, control, or monitor the data they use to populate these apps in. So you kind of focus on the security of the underlying layer, control access to the data in as fine-grained way as you can, and just let people interface to it however they want to, as far as these platforms go. It's kind of like what the Power Apps, Power Platform Center of Excellence, Center of Enablement, I cannot keep up with these acronyms, kind of does, is it lets you, the whole point of it is that it has very fine-grained models of permissions, like who can read what via what connector from what source, read, write, etc. It's very complicated actually. While not affecting the security of, well, not really stopping any of that top layer, this Power App layer in that sense. So what we actually do when it comes to Power Platform, Power Apps, is that we don't even do like any kind of security review really for each individual app. We kind of do it on the model as a whole and on the underlying data. So we do a review, for example, when someone wants to add a new type of data connection, as opposed to someone wanting to make a new Power App. That makes sense.
And just to add to this, we also build a governance from perspective of the layers. So there are 3 layers where you can actually build the applications. If you're like a totally basic user, you will have access to some data. You can access the SharePoint data or something like this. You can automate all this stuff, but you're not going to get production data, right? The layer 2 is for those sophisticated users that were certified that yes, they can actually access some data. Again, there's not everything, right? And then the 3rd layer is really when you've got the professional developers who utilize, and that's what my goal for this year is. I would like to really promote as much as possible low-code solutions to our high-end, high-code developers to use it whenever it's needed, because it actually speeds up the development, right? So our idea is actually to combine on having what I call it fusion type of development, where you, depending on what your needs are, you use either high code or low code.
I'd like to piggyback on what you said, actually, because I have a question for Kevin. But before I even start, I want to thank all the presenters. That was really, really good. So you see, you were saying that you've got certain levels of permission and you want to give certain developers or certain group of people extra rights. But then on the other hand, Kevin was saying that, hey, we need templates and standardization, right? So if we want, so I can see here forces going against each other. We want people to innovate, we want engineers to write innovative apps, you know, we want them to experiment, we want them to go against templates and standards. What's your take on those opposing forces?
We're actually talking about this right now, me and Martin, and some other people about this. We're developing this new kind of standardized path that we can take for these applications. So we have this concept of a paved road or an unpaved road. So when you take the paved road, it's already built. It's already paved, it's already painted, it's got lines, you know where you're going. Exactly. So that's where these patterns, so like you have a catalog of different technologies you can use, things like that. Versus the unpaved road, maybe you're driving a Land Rover right into a forest. Maybe you are forging a new path yourself, you're having to build it yourself, someone's going to have to inspect it to make sure it's stable, things like that. So this unpaved road concept is when you're trying new technologies. It requires some extra steps, extra review, extra working groups. We do these assessments of, because we're public sector, we're abiding by the 5th Act of legislation. So is there an impact to the privacy regulations to abide by? We kind of model the whole architecture out if it's a new thing. That's what we call the unpaved roads. So it's this model that allows us to try these new things while ensuring we have the public sector oversight that we have to have, being a regulated entity. Versus once you build this new unpaved road, well, we know how it works now. We can pave it. It becomes a pave road for the next person. So we kind of build this new catalog of processes this way. Hope that kind of helps.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually answers my question. But I have one more, if you don't mind. I have a question for Agile team. So I have experience with many different companies, small, big, large enterprises. And recently, for let's say past 6 months, I noticed a slow, or if not a wave, of criticism of Agile methodology, including DevOps, including Scrum, including Kanban, and the born or instantiation of Agile to with its simplicity. I was wondering if Agile team has any take on those new emerging methodologies like Agile, philosophies like Agile 2, and the methodologies that are in contrast to DevOps, like event sourcing or event modeling.
So we are using the basic of Agile to start with, like what Andre mentioned earlier. This is just 4 things that we start with, right? The 4 values. And then we go and we do principles. And then because at WorkSafe we have so many teams, we have adopted scaled Agile framework. But that doesn't mean that we are forgetting the lighthouse, which is the Agile core principles. There's nobody stopping us to not do any other methodologies, but because we are all collaborating and working in the same environment, we have to have some common practices. So this is where we start. And it's totally fine depending on where you are and which organization you are, what works best for you. So that's what we are trying to, that's what I'm saying, is like what works for you, you do, but the core values still stay the same. That's the foundation. And it goes back to like the previous question as well, when which method do you prefer, hybrid, in-person, or remote? What works best for you? Because it depends totally on how big your company is, what type of work you're doing. Maybe Kanban works, maybe waterfall still works. So it's totally depending on what you're doing.
So are you saying that you would allow different pods to implement different Agile methodologies?
So there is a couple of things. So the first one is, and it was one of the guiding principles for us, where we said the inner topologies, teams can define what they are. So Scrum, Sprint, is used for specific purpose. Kanban is used for specific purpose. Combination of both, Scrumban, right, is another one that could. So whatever it works for you. For operational teams, Kanban is most probably the best. I mean, for sure, right? For the teams that are actually sprinting and they've got a specific iterations where they know that there is a specific time that we're going to deliver without interruptions. No interruptions for 2 weeks. That's what they need to do. They need to deliver. That's where the Scrum is suitable. For operational teams where they might reprioritize things every single day, Kanban is where they would do. So, but I would like to actually caution from mixing methodology and framework, because people are referring to Agile as methodology, and it's not. Methodology is like a prescriptive steps. That's what PMI was, Project Management Institute, was when I remember in 1995. I was one of the first PMPs, like in 1996, and it's like, yeah, right, you got all these steps, and if you follow these steps, your project is going to be successful. Wrong. 70% of the project were failing, right? And I've seen it. It's like there's no way. So it's not about prescriptive steps. It is about really the in-depth understanding of those principles and those 4 statements. And I would like to see anybody, and I would challenge actually anybody to show me when any of those 4 statements in Agile Manifesto don't work. Challenge. Show me when it's not true. Or any of those 12 principles, those lighthouses are not there. It's not. Everything else, like, you can have Scrum, you can have extreme programming, you can have all this stuff. All of this work, but it's actually based on the same stuff. if you forget about those 4 statements and those 12 principles, whatever methodology or framework or whatever you use is not going to work. It's going to fail, right? That's what it is. But I can tell you where the bad press comes, because a lot of organizations try to implement this, and they end up with stand-ups. We've got the stand-ups, and we've got the backlog, so we are agile. And then they're developing, software, and then throw over to fence to the testers, and now go and test. And you come to a demo, right? The demo day, the last day of the sprint, and then you look at the backlog, and it's like all the committed stories will be completed by end of the day. Well, there's one finished from out of, I don't know, 10, but will be finished by end of today. Why? Oh, because this guy is actually, he is not here because obviously he is busy right now testing. Now, is this agile? That's waterfall, right? So whatever we call, but it's easy, right? That we always go to our comfort zones, and that's where that's exactly that process is. Agile is hard, but people, we all need to internalize what those principles really mean. And if in doubt, if something doesn't work for you, just go to those principles, read it again, and you're going to find the answer there. Doesn't matter if you're using just Sprint, using Scrum, using Kanban, or you're using these frameworks like, for example, SAFe, Scale Agile Framework, or using Disciplined Agile, or using any large-scale Scrum. Whatever you're using, those principles are going to be there. And if you don't find answer in your framework, you just go to those principles. There is the answer. So I personally believe what Agile with a lowercase a, is a common sense. And that's what we try to bring again back to IT.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Hi. I guess this question is about security. Kevin, you're popular today.
Kevin is very popular. Kevin said so, yeah.
So my question is, I really like your slides about the traffic jams and like the border crossing. And you mentioned the Nexus card, which I think is a great analogy. So what makes, how do you get a Nexus card basically? What is that? What is that process? How do you qualify teams to get a Nexus? And because we're talking about trust and trust in the process and the developers, but we can make mistakes just by being naive or just by not knowing certain procedures that are security, and especially because it's government, high risk. So can you elaborate more in the Nexus concept, like what makes a team earn that kind of...
The current plan and vision is that everything will contribute to a trust rating of some sort. So if you have a vulnerability in your code that gets released, that's going to drop, because again, you mentioned like people not knowing that kind of thing. I don't buy that. I'm going to disagree with you and push back against that, because we have extensive documentation and tooling for people to learn and catch these things ahead of time. So it's about using the existing knowledge and tools and processes and documentation and training and everything we already have to kind of avoid being caught. It's the same way as if you have a Nexus card in real life, you learn the rules. And if you don't learn the rules, you lose your Nexus card. Permanently, well, actually. The rule with me and my friends I go across the border with, you can't lie at the border anymore. But it's the same as like if you have a vulnerability, if you put a password in plain text in your source code, you lose trust. First, if you gain trust, if you do releases that don't have any problems, your trust rate will go up because you've proven that you know the instructions, that you know what the issues are, and you are proving your code can be trusted without having to undergo that kind of manual scrutiny. So everything will build into this. It's everything from the various types of vulnerabilities. We have code analysis tools. I don't know how many people here have heard of SonarQube, things like that, that'll actually look at the quality of your code as well as the vulnerabilities as well. These tools will actually give you a rating if your code is high quality or not. It doesn't just look for security problems, it looks for code quality problems. Are you passing all your tests in your pipeline? Do you have tests in your pipeline? Things like that. So everything will build into this. It's not just about the security, but the reliability of your code too. Hope that helps.
So, like, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding that by having the text, there's no monitoring. Or the security.
Yeah, so just to be clear, because this trust nexus thing is a thing, it doesn't mean you're not going to be monitored or watched or anything like that. It doesn't mean you have a free license to do whatever, or you're gonna.
I think people think that.
Yeah, so there's still, and that trust rating can go down because you are being monitored. Every release is undergoing the same checks, but it's just it's about the automation, the speeding up, the making it so you don't have to have manual review of everything you do.
It's like I trust you, but still I'm looking at you.
Exactly, because this phrase of security is trust but verify. So you
trust but verify.
Yeah,
right?
You want to build the ability to trust. What are you laughing at? So you want to build the ability to trust. But yeah, so you build the ability to trust, but you still verify. You still check. You still monitor. You still alert. Everything like that. I hope that's your question.
And David, by the way, Kevin is going to check your background.
I'm going to use ChatGPT to assess your resume.
But seriously, Kevin and I didn't have a chance to talk about this. But we would like to implement also very similar concept that is in SREs, so we call them service reliability. Google has called them site reliability engineering. But they've got a concept of error budgets. So you've got a certain credits at the very beginning, right? That's what we were talking about. And if you start failing on some of those security concerns or on the quality, you deploy to production, there is a leakage, then your credit goes down until the point where your credit actually is removed, right? Disappears. Sorry, you can't deploy to production until you fix your problem. And this is not only about the security, it's not only about the quality, it is also about our engineering practices. That's what we'd like to actually implement. Like, are you really following up those best practices? And we are violating them. Well, we give you free hand until a certain point, right? But at a certain moment, you need to actually get your act together. Because ultimately, all this stuff is actually creating technical debt. If you think about this, when we were on-prem, it was relatively easy to hide this stuff, right? This technical debt was sitting over there, it was growing over the period of years, but it was slow. Today, when you are actually in the cloud, there's no option anymore, right? Microsoft is updating the frameworks every couple of months. We're talking about Angular, new version coming every 6 months. Sorry, it's not optional. You cannot stop it. And if you are out of compliance, well, security is actually obviously opening the gates, right? So it's no option. Technical debt is a huge problem, and it's actually increasing. That's the reason why we need to have ability to actually monitor that and making sure that we actually fix it and we've got a high quality. We are getting there.
And if you lose all your trust rating, an animation plays of me taking your application behind the barn with a shotgun.
Any other questions?
Hi. So I saw you got a lot of you're implementing a lot of new tools in your whole development life cycle. Lots of AI and low code. How are you sort of quantitatively measuring the effectiveness of adding all these in, and then what does like success at the end of 2024 look like for you?
I'll give it a stab. So for example, with GitHub Copilot, it's going to be fairly easy. We're going to be collecting metrics from behind the scenes. Martin, you mentioned some of them. What's the productivity gain? What's the acceptance rating? So we are going to monitor as much metrics as we can. So for GitHub Copilot, I'm quite confident we can actually, by the end of the year, give everybody, including Andre, the yes or the no sign in terms of products. With a lot of the other products, it's quite challenging, and we have to work with the agile coaches and the RTEs to actually see, is the productivity actually improving? Are we actually able to build more features? And most importantly for my team is, can we get this technical debt under control? Because right now the technical debt is growing, it's not getting less, which is a problem. And that's again where we want to start using the tooling like OpenAI, GitHub Copilot to actually start reducing the technical debt. So big metrics for us this year is, are we getting technical debt to decline? Can we actually avoid technical debt? As I mentioned, is we want to have zero end-of-life technical debt. So things that we can actually proactively predict and deal with before it happens, we have to actually do. Not wait for Kevin to say, sorry, you can't go to production because. We want to avoid that because it's actually costly for the business and it's costly for the whole organization, and it's really frustrating for the engineering teams because everybody wants to deploy to production, and when you're told by Kevin, no, it's frustrating. But
I really enjoy it.
But I hope I'm answering your question. Is we don't know the answer yet for all the products, but we are actually, we've baselined a lot of metrics where we said we will track that, which is mostly quality of code. Velocity is a big one for the agile coaches and the RTEs, is we want to see, does the velocity actually pick up? Because if we say the productivity is better, but we're not delivering more features and the technical debt is not getting any better, what are we using that productivity for? Now for me, I'm always saying is I want productivity. So if GitHub Copilot can give us 30%, which Martin actually showed us, we can use that 30% to reduce technical debt that we already have. And we can also experiment, which is very important. We want to experiment, we want to continue to learn, like we've heard as well. So that's part of the metrics that we're going to be analyzing, but I don't really have the answer for you yet. And I also want to answer another question, which was, I don't think your question was really answered. Yeah. Copilot for Business, Monday, and Copilot Enterprise will be in February.
Monday. Something to be excited.
So get ready. 3 things to do.
Go to here. My question kind of ties into that one, but like since starting your DevOps journey, 2017, what are some like the organizational outcomes that you guys have achieved, and I guess kind of going forward as well? Like what are some of the things you're looking to achieve? Like is it reduced IT spend? Is it better outcomes for workers, or some of those kinds of things?
Well, a combination of all, right? Ultimately, we are serving stakeholders, right? Our stakeholders, and we want to actually serve as best as possible, which means that we want to deliver faster, but also we want to deliver more frequently and gather the feedback. In other words, you know, there is a concept right now from shift from projects to product thinking, right? So product, you think about, you know, the stuff that actually our customers are getting and so on. But this not goes far enough. Really, it's not so much about the product, it's about the service. Any organization, really, one or another, actually provides a service. And this service never exists in isolation. So for example, we are helping injured workers. And if you think about this, you know, yes, they're getting rehabilitation, they're being paid. But is there anything more? Like, for example, you know, if you are working for an organization, then your organization is registered with the government already. They got all the information. When it comes to WorkSafeBC and you use one of our products, well, you fill exactly the same information again. But the service is really like, why I need to do that? You know me, yeah, right? So the service is really by incorporating multiple stakeholders, multiple providers of those services together. And that's where we want to get. But to get to this point, we cannot just focus, you know, spending a lot of time in delivering the projects, because those products. Because if you think about this, there is no end state. And this is, matter of fact, that's what DevOps is. There's no end state. We are constantly going to grow, right? You are going to constantly make changes because the expectations of our stakeholders are constantly changing. The new generations coming, you know, like, you know, it's like, I was like it last year, I was in Europe and I was traveling, and this device was actually everything that I needed. That's it, right? But there is more stuff coming right now. Like just think about like AI. AI is going to completely change the way how we work, how we think, whatever we do. And yes, I know there's a large language model is whatever you put over there. But it's a generative AI, which is actually creating connections that we might not think of previously. So anyway, there's a lot of opportunities, and that's where we need to be. And to do that, we need to frequently deliver in the smaller iterations, gather the feedback from our customers, what they really look for, and to help them more. I know I'm not sure if I answered your question, but there is no end state. There is no like end goal. It is really improving, constantly reducing the cost, because we are a governmental agency, right? So you guys pay actually for us. So we want to reduce those costs as much as possible, but at the same time we want to deliver best service that is possible. It's a journey. Okay, any other questions?
To make sure I'm not under the speaker and hold it like this. So a question for Ivan and Daniel. First of all, thank you so much for you being you, both of you, for being there for us to cry on your shoulders when we have our codes rejected and our pipelines blocked by Kevin. But so my question is, like we have you guys. Who do you guys talk to lift yourselves up? Because talking to like 50 people every day, that might be a...
So just a little bit of history. I was the first PDM to be hired in WorkSafe. And when they hired me, I don't know whether they knew who they were hiring and that I'm going to be a troublemaker. Sometimes I am, joking aside. So who do we talk to? I'm very happy to have my fellow PDMs. So we have our close relationships, and sometimes when we need to, bounce the ideas or discuss or kind of figure out what is it that we can do. It depends really on what kind of situation it is. So that's one part. The other part, because we are a unionized environment, we do have our P&C partners, and we often refer to them because in regards to anything kind of related to collective agreement. So because we are heavily regulated, we also want to make sure that the full-time employees are respected and that their kind of rights from collective agreements are followed through, and that they, don't get damaged, if I can say it. It's not the best word, but there is no damage on their side. When we do have to go through some kind of disciplinary review or whatnot, really I try to treat you guys as humans. It's very important to me. And one time when I had a conversation, one of the shop stewards actually said, when I have you in the room, I know that people will be treated fairly. So I take a lot of pride in that, and I want to make sure that, sometimes there is miscommunications, misunderstandings. People might not behave the way that we want them to behave in the large organization, but there's always like a bit of a benefit of a doubt to that. And then last but not least, obviously we have our director, so a lot of communication is with Andre around whatever might come up. So there is a network. We are not alone in this. My approach is always first check with the employee or a consultant and see what I get from them and how I can support them the best. Also, when there is a conflict on the team, I tend to direct people to each other. I think since we moved to virtual environment, it's a little bit harder for everybody. You guys know that a lot of communication is in your body language. And when you think of it, when you hide behind the screen, I'm pretty sure if we were face to face, you wouldn't do this and talk to people. It doesn't feel good, right? So keep that in mind when you are online. even though it's maybe uncomfortable for you to be on camera, do it from the respect to the others. They don't want to talk to the dot on the screen, they want to talk to a human being. So please encourage that on your teams and keep that in mind. Also, being in the organization now that we are working in virtual environment, you really don't have that spontaneous conversation access. Sometimes when you are in the office, you can see your colleague and you can see that they have a bad day for whatever might be happening in their private life. When you are sitting behind your computer, you don't have that view. So you might then really kind of make the judgment about somebody and say, oh, they just like really bad today and they said something that they shouldn't have said, but you don't know what's happening for them. So always kind of try to track back and kind of think of that. You really have a human on the other side and try to be respectful to your colleagues. I hope that answered. Sorry, I went a little bit extra, but it kind of makes sense to continue on that.
I appreciate that.
And by the way, you will need a PDM support after talking, or after no from Kevin. So,
Kevin needed support from PDM as well.
No, but honestly, Kevin is actually the nicest person you can actually find. So, yeah. I know it's pretty late at this point, and we've got the most exciting part of the evening today. Neha, can I ask you for the draw?
Absolutely. I'm going to ask my left hand and right hand. They're right here. Okay. So we know it's been a long night. To keep you warm, we have hoodies, everything that you guys just learned, the continued growth. We have a notebook in there. You can take all the notes starting tomorrow at work. And then, we know some of you don't use notebooks, so we have portable chargers for your phone. So you can take notes on your phone too. All right. Ooh, okay, now yeah. I'm actually gonna pick random people to just pick. Let's see who's lucky. Is it you? Louis. Louis? There you go. Yeah. Perfect. You get to take basket home as well? Yeah? Yeah. Well, I hope you're not going in transit. If you want to leave basket behind, it's okay. I can use it for vegetables. All right, thanks, Ilana. Oh, let's see who's next. Jeremy? Jeremy, going once? All right, Jeremy slacked off today. I think they left. Next one is Ron. Ron Ma? No? Yes, okay, perfect. Woo! All right, last but not the least. Let's see. Andre. How did you do that? So I don't know.
Did you pay one extra money in there? It was you.
I'm calling for a security audit.
Access remote.
Yeah.
Well, I think
She shuffled it, so it worked out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. So, okay.
Thank you very much. So that's the end of the event. Now we still got a little bit of time, so we are going to stay around here. So please socialize, network. You can ask any questions or have a further conversations. And as always, we look for speakers. And if you are interested in either presenting your company or you've got something interesting to talk about, please talk to us and we'll just schedule you in one of the next events. Our next event is coming on the 28th of February. We are going to have another exciting company, and we will be talking about some interesting topics. Thank you very much. Have a great night.